So today I came across, actually I didn't come across because that would mean by chance, but I read one article and two books. I think I'm about 15 pages in this and around 5 pages in this. But I read a couple of these and I do want to share my thoughts today. So the first which I read is this Yawn essay, which is on the fog. I think it's titled Out of the Fog, and it's a discussion about Caspar David Friedrich, who painted this iconic painting called The Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog. And anybody who's heard of it, I think, cannot really visualize the picture, but if you are not aware of it but have come across on media, it's essentially this man with beautiful blonde hair who's just looking across an ocean of fog that is enveloping cliffs, valleys, mountains, and we know Lord knows what. Um, it's a critique initially that starts off the artist itself and his work about why, by judging by the standards of the 19th century, it's considered a failed piece of art, captured by critic comments littered across the article. But it later evolves into a discussion about what romanticism and German romanticism is, and how the modern idea of romanticism, which is, something that is just experiencing and living the life to the fullest through endless consumerism, has lost the meaning of what romanticism originally was supposed to be. So he introduces by showing this beautiful piece called Monk by the Sea. And Monk by the Sea was a painting that just, once I googled it and I didn't see it by myself, I was blown to bits, because Monk by the Sea was something that just made me run into a loss of words, because it was just one man staring deep into the ocean. You could call it as Albert Camus' wet dream, literally. It could be the emblematic representation of what the absurd is according to Albert Camus. But essentially it's just one man who looks out into the ocean, whose shades of blue merge with the sky, and it gives you this feeling that you've never felt before of absolute impending doom, where you are feeling stuff that you have never felt before. The painting is in contact with elements of you that you yourself did not exist. But yeah, that is the Monk by the Sea. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece of work, and it led me to sort of just ponder about, I went in an existential crisis at 21 itself. So anyone above 40, your cholesterol might rise, your BP might rise. But just returning to where I was, the idea then later takes me to, that's the painting, but that was a beautiful painting, and I cannot capture how gorgeous it is in words. I would love to see it in person itself if possible, but it later discusses about what romanticism is, and I do want to go deep into it, because I have not read Goethe's work, Schelling's work, or many of the artists that he has mentioned over here. But this idea of what the Jena Circle made, which comprises these German artists, is very interesting. That the argument of what early German romanticism was is that it glamorizes death in the pursuit of trying. So you are trying to achieve and reach something. It is better if you fail rather than achieve, which I feel like the Royal Challengers Bangalore are excellent at doing. But back to what I was discussing. It's the idea that, you need to lead a very austere life, one. You need to solely be dedicated towards your passion, and any other worldly material desire is absolutely irrelevant, because it does not serve in your attempt of trying. And three is that you need to either achieve it and die, or you need to die before achieving it, leaving an incomplete state of work, because it sort of glamorizes and idealizes your work, sort of shows that you are not working towards finishing the work itself. You are not honing your craft in service of the work, but rather the success or the reason that you are idolized is in the attempt or the honing of the craft itself. You are not idolized for the finished product, but for the process. And you are not idolized because of the technical skill within the process itself. I mean, sure, you are sometimes. Goethe surely is for Faust. But you are idolized because while attempting to achieve it, you died trying. And that death is what is provided impetus to push you into stardom. But the article later discusses about how, the idea of romanticism, which I might have completely mistaken, and I do agree, but That is also because of my lack of my knowledge and just me shooting into the dark. But the idea of romanticism is later then shaped and as used as capitalism's pawn in the game of chess for ideology. And this is what really stunned me about capitalism is that I don't think the greatest gift that capitalism has or the greatest strength of capitalism is its factors of production of land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. I think instead it is its really perverted ability to absorb any ideology or anything that serves its purpose or does not serve its purpose and morph it into an not morph, my apologies, because morph would be giving capitalism the credit that it is the one who is doing the morphing. It absorbs a morphed state of an existing ideology to serve its purpose. So, for example, the Jena Circle, which defined the idea of German Romanticism, was later reinterpreted and repackaged and mailed across France by a lady called Madame de Staël, which is mentioned in the article, which essentially is arguing to pursue, your desires, your enjoyment of your earthly desires, because you have this one life. And a romantic argues to lead this very austere life, trying to live life fully, trying to, pursue your higher ideal, your moral reason, just for the sake of pursuing it itself, and die trying doing that. And how capitalism, in particular represented by the bourgeoisie class in France, absorb it in order to just live their wildest dreams, sex parties, orgies, XYZ, whatever. I mean, I might be just talking out of my ass at this point, but yeah. And that sort of makes me realize how ideology is something that governs the world. I mean, you can literally, this is, I think, Slavoj Žižek's whole principled argument that it's ideology that is the king. I mean, the throne is occupied not by a individual but by ideology itself. The throne is not ideology. Ideology is someone who holds dominion over the throne. And that is amazing. But then I later took a detour and went into something more of soul searching, particularly because these two books which I ordered really came, Anthony de Mello's Awareness and Eckhart Tolle. The context behind Eckhart Tolle was because I love Kendrick Lamar, and Kendrick Lamar's discussion about Eckhart Tolle sort of brought in a couple of childhood memories where I remember my mother and one of my teachers extensively discussing Eckhart Tolle. As a little kid, I mean, the power of now was something that I was hearing when I was 13 or 12. And it was something that I'd staved off later, because as a child itself I realized that it would be pretty demanding to read a self-help book. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad was enough for them. But I think now I'm at 21, I do believe I should read it a little bit. So I started with The New Earth, because I felt like reading Power of Now will not be applicable to where I am right now and what position of life I am. Enjoying the moment. I mean, I have a lot of moments to kill, which is, I think, what something Power of Now is arguing against. But yeah, so I started reading A New Earth, and I don't have much value to add right now because I'm just 15 pages in. But I love this particular quote, which I'd love to read out to you. It's this one. Intelligence in the service of madness. And he lays the context of this in particularly during World War I. And he says, millions of men perished to gain a few miles of mud. And this kind of made me really introspect about not just the war itself, but more about how we phrase, how our relativistic view of any given object can change how our approach to it or our appreciation to it. So, for example, when you view life as a representation of just 4,000 weeks, it sort of hits a little harder. Of course, because a week is viewed as just 7 days, and a week is a rather shorter representation of time. So it does hit a lot harder. The same way when you represent World War I, which is a global conflict fought across at least all of the 7 continents. I mean, maybe 6 or 7 continents, I might be wrong. But when you realize that that was just fought for miles of mud, it just sort of trivializes the idea of war. It doesn't trivialize World War I, trivializes the idea of war. And that just made me realize that when I put anything in that, when I look at, hey, so for example, when I worked and I had to travel at least around 40 kilometers day in, day out, I sort of realized that, yeah, in a year, I will be losing about a month to travel. that puts thing in a really fucking different way. You sort of realize that, hey, that 1 month is something that you lose a lot of. And I think my mom also sort of realized this in a rather painful way about what she's lost. So we were having a discussion, and that's when she realized that 30 years of sunsets she lost because she chose to take a shift working according to the United States timing in India, and she lost 30 years of sunsets. So how you view time and how you view anything, relativistically speaking, is what really determines what you really are, what your objectives are. I mean, you can view a goal as something that is a means to an end, or you can view the goal as the end itself. Both might yield the same outcome, but both change that perspective of life a lot. And that is what I think really stunned me about both these books. And it's something that I really, really, really think is a good way to end. I mean, this is a beautiful day of a beautiful start, at least. And speaking 11 minutes in a row, because this 11 minutes of a row is not a representation of just my own conversation. It's not something that I'm just talking to the camera. In fact, it's just me talking to myself, me voicing out my thoughts. Is something that I don't get to do that frequently, because when I want to voice my thoughts also, it's always the urge to open a YouTube video, or to scroll a reel, or to listen to music. So to spend time voicing out these thoughts at least allows me to put them in a better position. So thank you for day one. Let's see when do we return.